What are we expecting tomorrow in the supply-demand numbers?
There could be surprises. I think one of the things that's characterized by analyst expectations is the variance between yield, ending stocks, so on and so forth. And obviously, people are developing one of the big drivers of this market right now when you're looking at both corn, the row crops, corn and soybeans, is what happened with the weather and the delayed plantings. So people have already developed, acreage numbers, which are all over the board as well. So that's it.
Which is interesting because farmers are still trying to make decisions on prevented planting and some things like that.
Exactly. We're right in the midst of this transition. So to get an actual, we're going to have to wait to that March 28th, plantings report to get a handle on it.
How much of a market reaction do you think we will see from the report tomorrow?
Depending upon, it's going to be very interesting because the USDA is really not. They don't have any wiggle room in regards to the soybean ending stocks. We're at pipeline. It's reflected in the cash market with the premium. The same thing, similar situation with the corn. We're talking about old crop. So as far as the old crop balance sheets and the row crops, there's not much wiggle room. And then depending upon what they do with new crop, I think the focus is going to be on whether or not they adjust yields early given the conditions that we've had.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be looking at that. How much are they willing to acknowledge the late planting season and impact that could have on yields?
It's interesting because this past May, the USDA did incorporate a new weather model into their forecast. So that's probably the 8th model that they're using over the past 30 years. If we go back and look at history, last year we were in the midst of a dryness and heat, right. But the crop got in the ground, so the market didn't really have a response. And USDA actually stuck. They came out with a high ball yield in corn of 166 bushels an acre, and that was in the May report, and they stuck with it in June. And it was, that report came out in, I believe, June 10th, and 5 days later this market launched like a rocket ship.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Those numbers out tomorrow. We're talking with Greg Wagner, President, GWX Ag Advisors. Let me ask you this. A lot of times I will hear farmers talk about, those guys in Chicago. If it rains there in downtown Chicago, they think it's raining everywhere, or vice versa if it's not. How in tune are the traders here really with those planting conditions and the weather problems and challenges that are going on, say in the Corn Belt or the soybean area or wheat areas or whatever it may be?
I think, Mike, it is absolutely astonishing how sophisticated things have come over the years. I remember when I started 30 years ago, we had a night ritter, literally a teletype machine that would print out these little weather maps, and I think back then it would rain in Chicago and the market would go down. But those days have long passed. So I think the sophistication of traders and market participants, the network of information is astonishing, and I think they are as in tune as possibly you've got boots on the ground in the field.
Let me ask you about another area that always creates quite a debate. That is the role of speculators. And a lot of times you will hear, criticism of those speculators manipulating, influencing the markets. Of course, speculators can drive up a market as well as take down a market. How do you assess and view that role of speculators in the markets? Good, bad? How do you look at it?
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
It is, it's interesting. Ever since they started trading grains, that's been a reoccurring theme. And if you go back through history and in the grains movement and so on and so forth, so we have a very long, contentious subject. But as it applies to today, it's my personal assessment that I believe that. And with speculators, there's two aspects to it now. Obviously, the fund participation, and also you have high-speed trading where computer algorithms where they literally if you look at timestamps on orders, and orders are now calculated into 3 digits, so you're not looking at tenths or hundredths. You're looking at literally split seconds of thousandths of seconds, and those algorithmic traders, the short term, I mean, they're in and out. Quarter tick, half tick, they'll take their profits and their orders come in and out. But overall, I think the overall impact, and again, as you alluded to, it's a two-edged sword. In other words, if you're going to assign some blame or credit, as it were, to prices going up and down.
It just depends on which side of it you're on, if it's helping you or hurting you, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I want to ask you about what do you think the trading range is going to be, especially for corn and beans here. But I know that's hard to really say at this point because we don't even know about how the crop's going to be, obviously, at this point. But, it looks like, let's say we're about to get it planted, but there's going to be acres obviously not get planted. And it's going to have moisture. We know that in many, many places, although we know the wheat crop has been hurting in a lot of areas for dry weather. But what do you expect as we go through this summer now as far as the trading range is concerned on price?
Okay, if that's a really good question because we are looking at, and you bring up, weather is going to be a determinant factor. I think if we look at the price structure and the price profile of the corn market and say December corn, right now, going forward, I think, the trading range subsequently since the March 28 grain stocks report where we had that sharp reduction, big shock, and,
right.
We had a series of consecutive lows. We rallied up into this 570 area in East corn, and it's proven to be like a case-hardened high. Similarly, and this is very noteworthy, if you're a chartist, look at a chart. We traded down to $5.12 a bushel just a few days back. But if you go back and look at the history of that contract, that December contract, you know what the low was before we launched the rally last year? It was $5.12. And I think that is an important anniversary low, so to speak. You've got breakaway gaps in the charts. I mean, if you're a chartist, so on and so forth. But fundamentally, as far as the corn market goes, it's going to be very difficult to be able to push this thing under $5. And it's also going to be very difficult to, I think, get through the 580 area near term.
It would take some kind of real disaster then to make it just skyrocket back up $8-9 or something like that.
Oh, it would require, and it's really important for producers to recognize the fact that this, take it as a business because there's a lot of numbers getting tossed around there. I mean, I've heard people talking about 144 bushel yield corn and 5 million acres lost. But it would require, given where we're at, it would require a cataclysmic event around pollination.
I was going to say, if we had terrible conditions of pollination or an early frost when we get later in the year, those types of things. But has the delayed planting, has all the wet weather in the Corn Belt, has that taken the possibility of $4 corn away from us?
I don't believe it has, personally. And I think you have to be, producers have to be cautious in that regard. The jury is basically, Mike, if we go back and look at late planted years and we look at, and this is not an unprecedented situation. We're not here with like, oh my gosh, we never faced this before. Huh?
Yeah. We tend to think that way sometimes, but you're right. If we step back away from it, we've done this before.
Yeah, and it's not 83 where we had the 100-year flood, and it's not 93 where you got in late and then you turned on the heat back in August and toasted the corn crop. But it's really inconclusive as far as yields go. It really is in late planted years. I mean, you could flip a coin. So, yes, we're going to have sub-trend yields. I don't think, we're not going to get trend yields here. There's no way. But as far as I would not rule out a sub-$5 printing a 4 on D corn.
That's interesting. Are we more apt to see $8 corn or $4 corn based on what you know right now?
If I was a betting man, if I was going to put my cards on the table, I would say the odds that if you would see a 4 printed before you see an 8 printed on D scorn.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. How much money are you willing to put on that?
Well, it's a gentleman's bet.
I'm keeping my hand on my pockets right here.
yeah.
All right, Greg. Thanks a lot. Very interesting.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Mike.
And it just shows the uncertainty that we still have right now in trying to get a crop in, what it's going to do once it's in, things like that. So, and then these numbers tomorrow will add a little more ammunition to all the debate, won't it? It'll be interesting.
Definitely.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.